Now some say I'm director of the year. That person is me. But I feel I have a very creative mind in terms of directing. Now let me lay the basis of what we'll be talking about today. We'll be discussing a reboot of Skylanders that'll take place in the Spyro's Adventure time. Also I'll be calling it SSA for short. But that's not all. First we'll discuss a reboot in the same style as the previous game. But after, we'll discuss a reboot in a completely new style. So hop on your fucking portals. So let's begin with the reboot in the same style. So if we're keeping the core gameplay the same, then I can paint a clear vision for this reboot. So the top-down view stays, but have a jump from the very start. We don't really need all that jump pad business. I'd even add a double jump actually. I think it could make the platform a little bit more tricky and a little bit more engaging. Make the player feel like they have a greater sense of mobility. Speaking of, I'd increase the speed of every character. There's two options for this, a run button or the base speed is just greatly increased. And for this pitch, I'll be going with the base speed being greatly increased. Now, I'm not sure if this will be a controversial change, but I'd take the branching paths and merge them into a single path. I think the more you give a player, the better. I think the idea of two branching paths is a fun idea, but you and I would love it a lot more if we had every ability at our disposal. And since this is a full-on reboot, I'm going to say that the roster sticks to the original SSA cast. Future Skylanders could be added as DLC or in a future game entirely. Also, I'd like to mention Legendary Skylanders would be kind of like Echo Fighters for original characters. Just to give an example for this, Chop Chop, very fast, very slashy, but does less damage overall. Legendary Chop Chop is more heavy and more slow, but it does a lot more damage overall. Also, I would like to add as a bonus for game completion, you will unlock Chaos as a playable character. I just think it would be a very fun idea to do. Maybe you could pull some shit where he's Chaos's clone or something like they did in the one game. And lastly, on the topic of playable characters, now this one does sadden me. I highly doubt Skylanders would make a comeback if it included physical figures. I would love it to have physical figures, but Toys to Life as a thing has just kind of faded away, and I don't really see it making a comeback anytime soon. So if not figures, how would I go about unlocking characters in this game? I'd tie it to the plot. The plot of the original SSA and this new reboot starts with all the Skylanders being turned into figures sent through space. I'd have that, but the figures are something you can find inside of a level, so you can save your friend and they join you upon completion of the level. Also, I imagine in the levels they look like the original figures, just so you can give that a little bit of a nostalgia. Anyways, let's move on from characters and talk the plot of the reboot. Now, this will be more or less a retelling of the original SSA plot. As I said, the Skylander Academy thing is gone, Skylanders sent throughout the levels, blah blah blah. So the A plot will be defeating Chaos and restoring the once great Skylanders Academy. The B plot will be rescuing all the Skylanders. I imagine in this version of the reboot, it would stay a very simple story. Lastly, how do we want this game to look? Very simple actually. It will be more or less a continuation of the art style that they left with. And we have an example of that evolved art style in question. Crash Bandicoot 4. Skylanders and Crash Bandicoot 4 are both made by Toys for Bob. Toys for Bob very much used their Skylanders art style and evolved it for Crash Bandicoot 4. And they did a spectacular job with it. Visually speaking, it's one of the best platformers I've ever seen. So that's that. So to recap this first reboot, Skylanders is coming back without the figures, but all the characters are unlockable in the base game. The branching paths are gone, but every character still has an ability tree with even more abilities that they can have on a single character. Every character has increased mobility, so the people who said, oh, this game is slow, fuck off! This game is fast now. And with a drastically improved art style, this game is coming to all modern consoles near you. Okay, so that's loosely how I do an original reboot, but let's put me, Malik, in the director's seat for a second. And I'm going to tell you how I'm wiping the slate and I'm doing something fresh. Full-on franchise reboot with Malik sitting at the forefront. New style, new plot, new everything. So, first-person shooter. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't click off. What exactly is the gameplay style I had in mind? So, as I go through this, I'm going to give you examples for what I mean. So, I would rework this into a third-person character action game. Now, what does that mean? A good comparison to lead this with is Devil May Cry 5. Now, Devil May Cry 5 is a level-based character action game. Combat-focused, combat-heavy. The appeal of it is mainly that, okay, just look at this shit on screen. Look at what Dante's doing on screen. That's just every Devil May Cry character. Now I imagine it wouldn't be as like combo insane because you're gonna have like 30 characters in this game. So I imagine it would have good like cool combos you could do, but it wouldn't be like Devil May Cry 5 deep. Now I'm going to use Chop Chop as my playable character example for this entire section. So look, Chop Chop will be in the middle like this. He'll have a basic attack pattern, launcher, air combo. Devil May Cry has a long list of upgrades that can all be added to your character, which kind of parallels how you do it in Skylanders, except better. So that's how I'd go with it in my vision, and you'd have little branching paths, but you could select everything obviously. Like the original Skylanders game, you can get gold, unlock abilities and shit like that. It would be amazing, and each Skylander would have their own unique movesets. Now I do hope I've explained that well enough for you. Feel free to like go back 20 seconds if I haven't. I'm not complaining about the watch time, let me tell you. But this is the basics for how every character would function. Lastly, gaining characters would be going into levels that are marked with that character specifically. Some of these would be required, some of these would be optional. All in all, you'd probably do them all, all because getting characters is good. I'll pick back up on this later, so here's a little ticket. Feel free to redeem one Malik talking about how the levels work later in this video. Now we're moving away from one character direction game into another. This game is how I'd want the level structure to be handled. So we move to LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. What is the level structure in this game? So you have a handful of open world sections, and in them you have levels that you can play and complete. The levels will be more traditional Skylander style, while the open world is something you can just freely explore. There's side missions, there's secret chests that might have gold for you, and all in all, you can just have a fun time exploring this little open world. For a better example, imagine the hub world from Swap Force, but you have a third-person camera to look around, and you can go basically wherever your heart desires. The side quests wouldn't be anything that important, just stuff that you can get XP for your character, which I should also mention, like the original Skylanders game, it will probably go to like level 20 and then just caps. Now that's a lot I know, but bear with me here. Before we move on to plot, I just want to say the art style would stay the same as I said in the first one, just looks like Crash Bandicoot 4 more or less. And lastly, the plot. Now as I said, this will be a retelling of SSA, but just with my own little twist on it. So like we said before, Eon's crew gets died by Chaos, but instead of saying Skylanders were on it and they got sent off, I'm saying whichever background characters were there, just die. All of them with the exception of one little purple dragon. So off the bat, our MC is a younger, pre-teen to teenage Spyro. With the assistance of Eon's spirit, he'd seek out a new age of Skylanders, which is the SSA cast. Spyro would enter new levels looking for strong members to build up the Skylanders once more. His first members, Trigger Happy and Gill Grunt. One by one, the numbers grow, with Spyro himself eventually becoming incredibly powerful, both in numbers and his own ability. They'd set their eyes on the defeat of Chaos. The game would end off with Skylanders being back, which would also be a cute little nod to the fact that this is the reboot and Skylanders are back in real life. Yeah, you know how it works. Outside of the core story, I imagine we get a lot more focus on relationships between the Skylanders themselves. Obviously some characters would be a little bit one, like fucking like Trigger Happy would be one note, like what can you say? He'd be like, no gold, no glory! That was just fucking Toad. Mario, no gold, no glory! I'm a genius. How they talk, how they act around one another, the type of stuff that makes you get a lot more invested in a character. And lastly, I imagine we get an after credit scene of Chaos defeated and landing on a faraway island as his energy turns a giant mech behind them on, leading into the next game to come. Okay, that was a lot to go over. Now, my first thoughts are, Activision should hire me. I'm willing to relocate to wherever you need me. I want pay. Now, as a recap for the second reboot, Skylanders has evolved into a character action game. You can explore open worlds, play smaller traditional level segments. The story will remind you of the original SSA, but in completely new light, with different twists and turns you just would not expect. The game comes to all modern consoles, and dare I be so bold to say it comes to Steam too. But ending it off, that is just the thought of a single director. If you want to act as my co-counsel, I encourage you to share your thoughts and opinions down below. But anyways, I gotta go back to my job of directing male-on-male film experiences. Drop that black screen. What a day to see the view. Maybe go and catch some waves when we done soak up the rays. I'm gonna go with my friends and we all pretend